This video is sponsored by my good friends at Bellesa. Stay tuned for more information about our massive giveaway. I would really, really like to talk about the gay hockey show. Not only do I feel a deep, urgent, burning desire to talk about the gay hockey show, but I feel as though this will be the first of multiple videos where I talk about the gay hockey show and the series by Rachel Reed that it was based on, because I'm waiting for some holds from the library to be able to read the source material. However, Jacob Tierney's television adaptation, Heated Rivalry, which premiered in late 2025, I don't need any library holds to engage with that. You might be asking yourself, have I misjudged her? Has Ophi cared about sports this whole time? Is she into hockey? And the answer to that question is no. No, I do not care about sports. I have never so much as read a sports romance plot. I know nothing about hockey. However, I felt no need to learn or retain any real information about hockey when I watched Heated Rivalry. I was barely even asked to care about sports performances relative to how much I was given to care about in terms of emotional and relational development. And I care about all of that so much. Just so much more than I thought I would. I'm making this video in part because Heated Rivalry is the first thing in a very long time, I mean a matter of years, to spark something like a hyperfixation in me. I have plenty of reasons why I think this is the case. Not just because Heated Rivalry is genuinely good and interesting and feels very unique as a piece of media, but also because I'm having the kind of time in my personal life that apparently allows me to access a sort of love for a new thing that always delights me and reminds me of being a teenager. Earlier this week, I lost around an hour to scrolling short form content because the algorithm figured out that yes, I would in fact stick around to watch people react to the show or set parts of it to songs or analyze the timeline of the 9-year situationship the show is built around. It does sound like a lot of things I liked in the show were clever adaptational choices for the things that worked well in the books. And I had a blast when I read the Dangerous Crowboy romance novel last year, and I already care about the characters in this romance novel, so I assume I will have a good time with the Game Changers series once I read it. And I know I had a great time with the show when I watched it. So that's what we'll be talking about today, and I've kind of approached this script as though we are friends and you have allowed me to info dump and told me you don't really mind spoilers. I'm not going to go over every plot detail of the show. There will still be plenty for you to discover if you go watch it for the first time after watching this, but I do have to tell you about it to convince you to watch it and to comment on the commentary around it, right? Okay. As I already mentioned, Heated Rivalry is the adaptation of Rachel Reed's Game Changers series. It is state-funded Canadian hockey yaoi, directed by Jacob Tierney, a gay man who enjoyed Rachel's books and then worked with an incredibly small budget and two absolute newcomers for his leads to create, I think, some of the best television of 2025. And it's not just me who thinks that. The show was a smash success beyond what anyone had prepared for. My best friend works at a bookstore, and even before we watched the show, we were discussing what a hard time they've been having to get the books in stock, because the expectation truly does not seem to have been that the state-funded Canadian hockey yaoi show would blow up the way it did. I bet the publisher is kicking themselves for not doing an as seen on TV style reprinting of the book with the actors' faces to coincide with the launch of the show, now that everyone, like me too, wants to read the books as a result of seeing the show. There are currently only the 6 episodes that comprise season 1, all already out, but a second season has already been confirmed, and as it stands right now, I think the one season of television that was made tells an immensely satisfying story just as a standalone. Here's the thing about the show. The thing I'm most certain you have already heard about the show if you've heard anything about Heated Rivalry at all. There are a lot of sex scenes. And this is especially true of the first 2 episodes. As Michael Hobbs said on Blue Sky,
People keep asking if the gay hockey show is good or bad, but it is simply too horny for either of those words to apply. It's the first show I've seen where a sex scene fades to black, then fades in again, and they're still going at it.
I was already aware before watching the show that people were calling it softcore. I already knew that it was based off of romance novels that featured erotica, but I have to tell you, I was shocked and a little bit delighted by how immediately the show leaned into that. There are multiple sex scenes in the first episode alone, and they start happening very early into the episode, but so do other narrative tools that will be relied on throughout the rest of the show, like using a voiceover narrative from in-universe sports commentary or podcast to get necessary information across to the viewer, something else I loved and thought was really fun. What an immersive way to be able to give exposition dumps about the characters I just met 1 minute earlier. Genuinely, I love it. I love this show. So, because so much of the exposition happens by way of commentary from others, we are given a really clear window into what the public persona for these guys are. Shane Hollander, a more straight laced, canonically autistic, cocky, good boy role model, and Ilya Rozanov, a cocky Russian bad boy. The show takes place over this fairly sprawling timeline, 9 years starting in 2008 with Shane and Ilya's rookie season. They're very competitive with each other, and as the first and second drafted in their rookie season, they are assigned this rival dynamic in the media and press. The structure of the show basically is that we're just sort of checking in with them across nearly a decade, popping forward in the timeline to whenever they see each other next after their first encounter. Within 8 minutes of starting the show, we are 6 months past where we started, and watching these guys pant and sweat after Shane's workout became this, heated, competitive thing between the two of them, a rivalry, a heated rivalry. The name of the show and of the book in the Game Changer series where Shane and Ilya's story begins. And I'm mid argument about why I think the sex scenes are good and well done, but something else about the show is that it is kind of just baseline, really horny, even outside of the more explicit scenes. Like, I think some of the ways people discuss this show's erotic nature are sometimes lacking in good faith, good analysis, or even an understanding of what the show they're criticizing is about. But can I say that I think that the idea that this show is entirely erotica is a baffling conclusion to come away with, based on the discourse and the gift sets people who think that are probably seeing circulated? No, not entirely. And I sure hope you're not sick of this topic yet, because I have much more to say, but first, let me take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, my good friends at Bellesa. I really, really love partnering with Bellesa. I think they are such a natural fit for what I do here on this channel. Bellesa is a bi-woman company for all things sexual wellness, with a mission to empower everyone to embrace, explore, and celebrate their sexuality. Now, to start, and because it's the one you get for free with your order, we have the Rose. You've heard of this one before because it goes viral on TikTok all the time, and for good reason. This has 10 different modes. It fits so well in the palm of your hand to provide you with complete control of your pleasure, and it's so cute and discreet, it literally looks like a rose. Next up, we have the Pebble. The Pebble features suction and vibration, both controlled independently. It's ergonomically built to fit perfectly in your hand, and best of all, it doesn't waste your time with any annoying pattern modes, which is one of my favorite things about Bellesa, and one of the ways I think you can really tell that it is a bi-woman company. And the Pebble Pro. This one comes with next-gen power, a stronger, more powerful motor for deeper, more satisfying sensations, extended battery life to keep the experience going as long as you do, and it is fully customizable with 3 precision-engineered interchangeable heads. Suction for targeted intensity, thumping for rhythmic tapping, and licking for teasing, tongue-like motion. All 3 functions come with 5 vibration speeds, and again, no annoying pattern modes. Like their other toys, this one is ergonomic, and it feels so comfortable to hold, like a natural extension of your hand. All these features in one tiny little compact device, and it even comes in a sleek, discreet little charging case that nobody would really look twice at, on your bedside table, tucked into your suitcase to travel with, or plugged in to charge right in its case. If you're looking for one of their more classic toys, you might be interested in the Air Vibe, which provides dual stimulation, also comes in the cutest little carrying case, and is so blessedly quiet for how intense it can be. Or, of course, my personal favorite, the Thump. Not even just my favorite of all the toys Bellesa has sent me, though it is pretty stiff competition there, but my favorite toy I have ever owned by anyone. This one does it all. She vibrates, she suctions, and she thumps. This one was designed to be the de facto replacement for all external stimulating vibes, and they did a real good job designing it for that. It utilizes what they call their improved pleasure jet technology, with true feel vibrations to naturally complement the suction at its targeted base. This is the part I think is really cool, though, why it's even called a thump, why I think this toy is such a revelation. This pop grip here gives you these natural palpitations. I had never seen anything like this before. And of course, like the rest, the thump fits and charges in a discreet little carrying case. I feel like anybody looking at this would just assume that there's an extra pair of glasses in it. And of course, all of Bellesa's toys are made from premium quality silicone, body safe, and also just very soft in your hands. I truly love Bellesa. I am so excited to be partnering with them again. Everybody who signs up using the link in my description below will get a free rose toy with your order. Thank you so much again to Valessa, and let's get back to the video. So, is Heated Rivalry entirely erotica, and would it be bad if it was? I think those are questions that could have many different answers. For me, yes, Heated Rivalry has a ton of erotic scenes in it, and yes, that is a lot of what people talk about when they talk about this show. But the thing about the scenes in Heated Rivalry is that not only do they serve the plot, they are the plot. This is a rivals to friends with benefits to lovers slow burn, and in a narrative that takes so much care to show us what the public perception around these guys are, the scenes are the way that we get a glimpse at what's going on with them in private. These scenes and the subtle little nuances put into them by both the writers and the performers are so much of the plot of the story, because this being adapted from a romance novel means that the plot of the gay hockey show is not hockey. Not really. Not even really the pressures of the closet are the plot, though that is a theme in the plot. The plot is that it is a show about Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov falling in love and taking nearly a decade to admit it to themselves or each other. And when I look at it that way, with the understanding of what these scenes are here to convey, I don't really understand the take that they should have been edited down or that they were gratuitous. I don't think that's a good take. I don't think it's good analysis. The scenes are deployed really well in this show, and the amount of them that the audience is invited in to witness decreases in frequency the more serious the relationship between the two leads becomes. Which, much like how I love the use of the in-universe podcasts and commentary, I think is just such a clever method of storytelling. Again, I will say, I love this show. And I also think, despite reviews you might see floating around claiming that the show isn't authentically queer or whatever, that it might be a little bit missed in discourse that even just a relationship like this, hooking up like this, while it's not exclusive to gay people, it is pretty inherently queer, yes? Casual sex is queer. Hooking up and being in the closet not only to your hockey fandom but also to yourself, that's a queer experience. The narrative beat where Shane is agonizing over what text to send to Ilya after a hookup that doesn't go how he expected it to, and he types and deletes "we didn't even kiss." Not only a fantastic insight into Shane's character and how he's feeling about things, but it feels, to me, like an inherently queer moment. And again, I have not yet read the books. My understanding is that there is erotica in the books as well. Like, that's part of the appeal of this, which is another thing that has been endlessly discoursed on. The question on everybody's mind, apparently, are women allowed to like fiction about gay men? Are they allowed to write it? Are they allowed to watch it even when it is lovingly and tenderly adapted by a gay man? Everyone has takes on this, I guess. To be clear, these lines of discourse are not unfamiliar to me. I would say they're pretty well trodden by now, pulled out to replay the hits after they were such successful points of contention to have against works like Love, Simon or Red, White, and Royal Blue. Both novels written by people who are queer but are constantly spoken about as if they are not. Becky Albertalli has spoken about being pressured to come out as bisexual before she was ready due to this sort of purity testing, protective sort of bad faith criticism that people were aiming at Love, Simon. The assumption was made and somehow traveled very far that she somehow had no right to write about the things she wanted to write about. That it must have been some sort of lecherous, self-serving thing for her to write a sweet gay YA novel. And I still see Casey McQuiston, the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, derisively referred to as a straight woman despite being queer and non-binary. Because, let's just be honest, when it comes to the team sport of hating on a thing written by somebody you assume to be a woman, nobody really cares about having their facts right as much as they do about having something they can act righteously furious about. And personally, not that it even matters, but I always suspect that when someone is writing this sort of narrative, it's more likely than not that they are queer. Both because I don't like to assume heterosexuality in everybody else any more than I like it assumed about myself, and also because I remember seeing this played out multiple times. So if I'm being honest, my immediate assumption about Rachel Reed, the author of the books and a primary target of people's indignation about the show, was that I would probably guess that she was queer, and that I would definitely guess people were about to be really weird about her sexuality. And that has happened. Jacob Tierney, the director of the show, has spoken up on her behalf in response to some of the unfair criticism being levied against her. He said, "We as queer people need to check our messaging. The things that we decide women can or can't do can be really exhausting. Women are allowed to write about men. They're allowed to write about gay men. The question should be, how are they writing about us? Is it with empathy? Is it with allyship? Is it with kindness? Why are we looking for enemies here instead of looking for allies?" It would appear I've grown very fond of Jacob Tierney. I agree with him that a lot of the cries about inauthenticity come down to a decision that women simply aren't allowed to do certain things. Which it's hard to find reasonings for that don't just boil down into misogyny, but oh boy, have the haters of this show certainly tried. If it's not for thinking that you personally should have been asked permission before Rachel Reed wrote a queer story, it's being angry at the concept of women enjoying the show. A common James Somerton-esque refrain that I've seen is that the show exists in order for straight women to sexualize gay men. I think people are constantly very eager to compare to the exploitation of lesbians, as though lesbophobia has nothing to do with the intersection of misogyny and homophobia, and is instead a thing that women can do an equally bad version of when you feel like getting mad at a woman about something. And I do just want to zoom back on what a silly thing this is to get mad about. Have women not, since the beginning of literature existing, been asked to identify with and enjoy narratives about men? Why is a woman's brain big enough to enjoy and take in a narrative around a man, but not to write one? And what man is ever flogged like this for deciding to write about women or about lesbians? Not for writing them poorly, but for just wanting to write them at all. I have never seen that happen. The erotic nature of this story is, of course, a reason that people use to try to make the creation or even enjoyment of it into something predatory, but I'll be honest with you, I don't even think it's a bad thing if straight women are watching and enjoying the show and also they think the scenes are hot. I don't care. I don't mind. They're allowed. I'm not their mom. Lots of straight women enjoy much more hardcore MM content, by the way, than Heated Rivalry, and there have been tons of theories about why, and I don't really care about any of them. I think women are people, and people are allowed to enjoy narratives about people. I also just fail to see what's wrong with straight women enjoying this story. This long spanning gay love story where the men are tender to each other, where they fall in love and struggle to say as much, and then we get big climactic scenes where they finally do. I don't think anyone can actually explain to me in a way that I will agree with what is wrong with a gay romance novel being adapted into a successful television project. Especially when it's an adaptation made with care for its subject matter and a happy ending. Like, I get it. I understand, I guess, that it seems like it must be fun to make up some kind of lecherous fujoshi to get mad about, but let's just think about that for a second. When did we agree that it's not better for straight people to be exposed to media about queer relationships than otherwise? When did we agree that it's not a good thing for straight people to think about the experience of being queer, even if they do only end up really thinking about it because of some fictional hockey players? I missed that meeting. And that's all not even touching, again, my refusal to make an assumption that everyone is heterosexual. So many of the fans of Heated Rivalry are themselves gay men, or lesbians, or bisexual and non-binary and asexual people. And it's just doing a weird heteronormative flattening of the audience to pretend like none of those people are there just for the sake of having something you can be indignant about. While there are valid criticisms that can be made of any narrative, it was written by a woman is not a valid criticism, and we need to get better at telling people that they are annoying and embarrassing and sexist when they start whipping that one out. So, thanks to Jacob Tierney for that one. I've really enjoyed seeing how Jacob talks about the source material for these books, because I think it would be really easy for him to feed into some nasty discourses about him coming in and elevating the silly, unserious source material. I mean, I'm not totally naive. I do understand that the person adapting a project is generally compelled to at least attempt to speak kindly about the original author and their original work. But there's a level of respect and admiration for the source material that I think comes through in what Jacob says that I really appreciate. Not only for his insistence that Rachel's work holds value, which he specifies not as a guilty pleasure, which I found really wonderful, but also that the large audience she had amassed for her work was the exact audience he wanted to court for his. In reading interviews with Jacob Tierney, again and again I've seen him reference wanting to make sure that the existing and huge group of fans of the original novels were on board with the show. Somebody else remembered him as saying the gay guys will find it pretty quickly when he was talking about wanting to court the original fans of the book. And I found that really funny. As I said, I've grown quite fond of Jacob Tierney. And it is kind of sad how remarkable all of this feels to me. His clear respect for the woman who wrote the story he wanted to adapt, his dedication to the source material, his clear passion for Rachel's story, but also the outright stated desire to have a bunch of women in your audience and not to just get mad when that's who ends up watching your show. I'm sure a lot of you already do have creators in mind when I mention the idea of somebody getting angry about the women who watch their show, and especially who hate the women who watch their shows and want the men in them to kiss. The creators of shows like Doctor Who, Sherlock, Supernatural, and I'm sure countless others have repeatedly shown their disdain for their fans, even within episodes of the show themselves. And that's a concept I want to explore more in the coming year. So tell me in the comments what show popped into your head when I say that, when I say somebody made something and then hated that women liked it. Who do you think about? And isn't Jacob Tierney doing the exact opposite thing? Isn't that cool? I think it's cool, at least. I'm sure people will have some kind of cynical read on this. They will try to diminish the impact of the queer art Jacob Tierney has made by retaining their anger about Rachel Reed writing something they thought she had no right to, but definitely weren't being sexist and insisting she didn't. But I think the way Jacob put it about looking for allies rather than enemies is very striking. I don't think that he's watering down what he's doing, but I do think that wanting women in his audience speaks to him respecting women. He respects the woman whose work he's adapting. He respects the women who enjoyed that work as much as he did when they read it. He didn't invent reasons that they were enjoying it in the wrong way and he was intellectually superior. He sees the value of this and he likes it and he wants the other people who like it to like the thing he made. I think that's great. And also, Jacob Tierney speaks about his intimacy coordinator with glowing respect for her professionalism and in a context where it makes sense that an intimacy coordinator's job was to make sure something was both safe and sexy. Which means, you know who else Jacob Tierney is the opposite of? Justin Baldoni. In a really sweet blog post that Rachel Reed made about the show and her experience visiting the set while they were filming, she talked about how everybody's clear passion for the story they were telling made the vibes too good to worry about what if something went wrong or the project became synonymous with some huge scandal. I don't know if it's what she meant to invoke, but my mind immediately flashed to Justin Baldoni, and it ends with us. And the hesitance Colleen Hoover now describes feeling to even want to name the book as one of her accomplishments, which, however you feel about Colleen Hoover, that is sad when it had originally been a book that was so important to her. And further than that, the disdain Baldoni always seemed to show for having primarily female audiences, him whining in his TED Talk about needing to see more men in his analytics, and then being paternalistic and condescending to the women who did show up for what he was doing. I think the missing piece there is actual respect. I don't see Tierney going and giving TED Talks about how feminist he is. I don't see him working to convince me that he respects women. I just see him respecting women, and then that convinces me. All this infighting, I think, is really stupid. I don't think it's bad for him to respect those women. I don't think gay people and straight women need to be pit against each other. I think there's no actual hope for liberation if we have to be. If we cannot have allies, we cannot be in solidarity, and we cannot share something as simple as narratives and stories with each other. And here's where I have to say, this video was originally going to cover much more ground, but then I realized I really should split it up. I have more praises to sing about Jacob Tierney as far as some of the other press coverage around this show goes. I gotta talk about the way the leads are being treated, and I really want to do a more comprehensive review of the show once I can measure it against Rachel Reed's work. So if you want to find some of my thoughts as I work my way through making the other videos, you can find them over on the Patreon, where you can also find this video ad-free and uncensored. For this video, though, I wanted to stick on the theme of the unnecessary division between the queer community and straight women. And again, I have to say, I feel like it assumes many more women to be straight than would tell us are straight, or than would be queer in a liberated society where we were not so heteronormative. Very often, the argument is shorthanded not even to straight women versus gay men, but gay men and women. And it's like, so many women are queer. I thought we all knew this. I want to be pragmatic here. Do I think the gay hockey show is going to change the world? No. No, I don't think that. Do I think it's useful that one of the most discussed pieces of queer media out there right now in 2025 is unapologetically sexual, joyful in its representation of our experiences, and created from a deep place of respect on the part of everyone involved with the adaptation? Hell yes, I do. Of course I do. This is another theme I'm going to be revisiting this year because I think about it literally all the time. I know we all felt really cool decrying rainbow capitalism, and I also know that it is not liberation for megacorporations to be willing to pander to us. But hey, doesn't it sure beat the alternative? Isn't it kind of nice to be a marketable demographic? I don't think that Heated Rivalry is going to cure homophobia in the world or in the NHL. I also don't think that it's going to magically make it worse, as some people have implied. I think the ship has sailed on that one, even if it is truly straight women fetishing hockey players. I think the NHL was already homophobic. I don't think the show is likely to convert dyed-in-the-wool homophobes, but I do think that it is really valuable as a piece of queer art right now. I think it's really valuable to have something that is joyfully smutty, that doesn't feel shy or embarrassed about those origins, and that is experiencing unexpected runaway success during a time of intense repression. So yeah, I don't mind it. I don't even mind if people who make money off of this kind of story decide they want one of their own and then they recognize queer people and also their straight women allies as a marketable demographic. I don't mind. I think through that we could see the dial nudge just a little bit closer to some level of, if not radical mainstream acceptance, because it won't be, at least a recognition of queer people and their stories as a force that is costly to ignore. So, in short, I think Heated Rivalry is a net positive. Get it? Net? Like hockey? I don't think being mad at women for writing it or liking it or enjoying it is a worthwhile fight. I think especially this week of all weeks, but also every week behind it and ahead of it, there are more important fights to save our energy for. I also think bright points like this one are worth celebrating in a world that is so dedicated to trying to grind us down. So I am happy to celebrate Heated Rivalry. I am happy to love it. I don't need everybody else to love it, but I do need them to not be weirdo misogynists when they talk about all the reasons they don't. Thank you again to Balessa for sponsoring this video, and thank you to you, the viewer, for letting me talk about something I love. If you like this sort of conversational commentary video, maybe consider subscribing. If you really like it, you can sign up to my Patreon at the free tier to be notified when I upload a new video. And if you really, really like them, you can sign up higher than that to access new videos every month and to be included in the name scroll at the end, which should be starting any second now. Hooray! It's the end scroll! We made it! Next time I talk about Heated Rivalry, I will be discussing the press tour surrounding it, and specifically how poorly I'm seeing Hudson Williams be treated in parts of that. I did watch the BuzzFeed Thirst Tweets video, and I have so many thoughts about it, but I just straight up did not have the time to watch all the press they've been sending these guys out on in time for this video. I'm not sure yet if that's going to be the next one or not. Let me know in the comments if you want it to be next or if you want another topic before I circle back. I'm very excited to hear what you think. Thank you again to my Patreon, to my YouTube channel members, to anybody who has sent me coffee donations or contributed to my GoFundMe, and of course to everyone who stuck around to the end. See you next time. Bye.